When it comes to cars, safety is one of the most important factors to consider. Strong crash protection, advanced driver assistance systems, and reliable structural design can literally be life-saving. But when we talk about EVs, and especially Teslas, there often seem to be a lot of misconceptions there. Some people assume that the battery makes these cars more dangerous, while others believe features like autopilot mean the car is safer by default. The truth is, Tesla vehicles have consistently performed very well in crash tests around the world, often earning top marks for protecting passengers, but the details do matter here. Ratings can vary not only by model, but also by testing agency and rating. For example, a car might receive a 5-star rating in the US, but a lower score in Europe, depending on how each country's safety authority weighs things like pedestrian protection, crash avoidance technology, or even seatbelt reminders. So today we're going to break down Tesla's safety results model by model and compare them to a few of their big competitors, and get into why certain car scores are higher and lower depending on who's doing the testing, so let's get into it. When any new car comes to market, safety testing actually lags. This happens with brand new models as well as refreshed models, and this is because these third-party agencies have to take time to obtain the car and then run rigorous testing. Oftentimes when a new car like the Cybertruck comes out, people assume it to be unsafe by looking at it and find it very concerning that safety tests haven't been released, even though it's available for sale. For NHTSA safety testing, they may not test a car for 6 to 18 months after it's released, and this all depends on sales volume, expected safety impact, and other factors like that. For IIHS, they will sometimes be faster than NHTSA, but they are independent and funded by insurance agencies, so things still can take time there, and each agency buys the cars from the companies just like customers do. However, prior to any of this testing, these cars are all required to meet certain safety standards before being released. In the US, this involves a self-certification process. Manufacturers are legally responsible for ensuring that their car complies with all Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, or FMVSS, before they can sell them. This is why any and all companies in the US can ship cars right after launching them. They perform their own rigorous internal safety testing in order for this legally to be on the road. So when you see a new car launch like the Cybertruck, it's because Tesla had performed a ton of their own testing, and they got that car to meet all of these safety standards. Tesla has also released videos of that intense testing, and these got released after NHTSA released their own results. But before we get to the Cybertruck, let's detail the safety of Tesla's most popular cars. On Tesla's website, they detail safety, saying, quote, "Tesla vehicles are engineered to be among the safest cars in the world, helping to protect every passenger in every seat. Traditional crash tests have historically been based on the average adult body type. While some manufacturers are beginning to adapt to evolving crash test standards, our approach has always focused on minimizing injury risk for all occupants regardless of size, seating position, or scenario. This allows us to consistently achieve top safety scores across all categories, including more challenging ones, such as protection for second-row passengers, smaller occupants, and children. Every Tesla vehicle is designed with a rigid frame and large crumple zones to reduce the risk of occupant injury, while the structural battery pack creates a low center of gravity to prevent rollover. We use billions of miles of anonymous real-world data from our global fleet to learn how collisions happen and how we can help prevent them in the future. These data points enable us to continuously improve safety through over-the-air software updates and passive safety enhancements, like advanced forward collision structures and far side airbags." Tesla also has a full safety page detailing their own testing, their safety systems to prevent an accident, thermal protection from fires, and more. In a video on this page, Tesla's head of engineering details what crash safety looks like for the Model Y, and it's pretty interesting to see. Passive safety is what they call it when you get into an accident, and that's really what we'll be focused on today. All of Tesla's cars include automatic emergency braking, forward collision warning, blind spot collision warning, and lane departure avoidance to avoid an accident in the first place. But once it happens, that's where this engineering comes into play and these safety scores. This car has the bumper beam, the crush can, and their front underbody casting up front. This is engineered for controlled crushing, and then there are multiple load paths from there. A higher load path when hitting vehicles, or a lower one when hitting lower objects. In both scenarios, it pulls the drive unit down and not headed into the cabin. Then it has protection laterally to push the car away from an object on top of other systems there. Here he shows the car that NHTSA actually tested with, and how all of the systems worked as designed to completely protect the cabin and make it so the door still functions. Another thing that helps all EVs, and especially Teslas, is the low battery pack, low to the ground, which helps with rollover risk. Even in these extreme examples, the car does not roll over. And this is, of course, prior to seat belts, airbags, and all of that. Now, one thing Tesla does in particular as well is use fleet data to improve their crash tests beyond industry standards, so that they are designing safety for the most common crashes that they see out in the wild, not just those industry standards. But the Model Y is by far Tesla's most popular car, and they detailed how in 2020 this got a 5-star crash rating overall in every category from NHTSA. On top of that, it was a top safety pick plus from IIHS. From NHTSA, the most recent model year that I see in their testing here is 2024. So that means that the latest 2026 refresh actually hasn't received testing scores from NHTSA yet. From Tesla, we can typically expect that things are going to improve, but they did make changes to this car, so we'll have to see once those results come in. For the 2024 Model Y, though, all variants, it received a 5-star overall rating, as well as 5 stars for rollover, 5 for frontal crash, and 5 for side crash. They also detail that forward collision warning, lane departure warning, crash imminent braking, and dynamic brake support are all standard and meet performance criteria. NHTSA has posted their official videos of this crash testing, but IIHS is a little more detailed on their website, and they awarded the 2025 Model Y a top safety pick plus. Here, this is still the Model Y prior to the latest refreshed version. But ratings from IIHS come in across the board at good, acceptable, marginal, or poor. That's how their rating system works. And Tesla received the top good rating for crashworthiness, small overlap front, moderate overlap front updated test, and side updated test, as well as crash avoidance and mitigation, headlights, and front crash prevention pedestrian. They received acceptable for latch ease of use for seatbelts and child restraints. It's pretty impressive to look on this website and go in depth on the results because they break down every single test with a rating for each part of the body at times. For instance, looking at driver's side, we can see driver injury measures, where Tesla received the top score for head/neck, chest, hip/thigh, and lower leg/foot. For passenger side, they similarly got a good score across the board. Overall, for the moderate overlap front, which is an updated test, Tesla got good across the board with the exception of rear passenger restraints and dummy kinematics. That received an acceptable score, and it seems to be referring to the thing that they detail here, quote, the rear passenger dummy's head approached the front seat back, which increases the risk of head injuries. Next is a side updated test, which you can see here. Across the board again, top scores, along with headlights and front crash prevention. The main reason Tesla received acceptable for child seat anchors is that they were, quote, too deep in seat. These are great results, but of course Tesla sells globally, and one particularly impressive thing to see is how their cars perform with other standards. Back in 2022, the Model Y actually received the highest safety score ever from Euro NCAP. It got an overall 92%, when at the time the highest score from anybody else was an 89%. You can see their results here. Overall, for adult occupant, it received 97%, for child occupant, 87%, for vulnerable road users, 82%, and then safety assist, 98%. Again, watching these safety results is very impressive, and it's great to see that Teslas aren't just passing safety tests for particular standards in one country. They're doing well across the board. ANCAP was similar with 98% for adult occupant, 89% for child occupant protection, 82% for vulnerable road user, and 98% for safety assist. Of course, these are now technically outdated results though, since we now have the entirely refreshed Model Y. So next let's look at the Model 3, which also includes the Model 3 refresh specifically. For the Tesla Model 3 up through model year 2023, it received 5 stars overall from NHTSA. That includes 5 stars for frontal crash, 5 stars for side crash, and 5 stars for rollover. On top of that, it meets performance criteria for all safety technology. Now this is a car that since the refresh also has not been tested by NHTSA, but we can expect that probably it will be getting similar results here. However, IIHS results have changed for this car and not for the better. The 2023 Tesla Model 3 was a top safety pick plus from IIHS. For crashworthiness, we can see good scores across the board there. The same for crash avoidance and mitigation. And then latch ease of use is acceptable. When we look at small overlap front, driver side, there's one acceptable on lower leg/foot and the rest are good. And then we have a ton of good and superior ratings for all of the rest of the systems. It seems like those child seat anchors are something they always get called out for them being too deep in seat. Overall, this is an incredible rating, and it's why it's a top safety pick plus overall. They basically give it that title to say, if you don't want to look into these crash results at all, here's one that has this badge that shows it's definitely safe according to our standards. But for the latest refreshed Model 3, the 2025 model, it actually was not awarded a top safety pick plus. It got a good rating from IAHS, and we can see it right away with crash worthiness, moderate overlap front, updated test, it got acceptable. Then for headlights, it also got acceptable. Seatbelt reminders for seatbelts and child restraints got marginal, and latch ease of use got acceptable. Of course, this is surrounded by some good ratings here as well, and when we go over to moderate overlap front, we can see a lot of good ratings, but again, rear passenger injury measures for chest got moderate, and then overall evaluation as a result of that became acceptable instead of good. For that chest rating, they say rear passenger dummy injury values indicate a low risk of injury to the head or neck and a moderate risk of injury to the chest. For side updated tests, there are also 2 acceptable ratings in there. Headlights got that acceptable overall rating, and then again there's that moderate for seatbelt reminders overall evaluation. So some of this seems to be due to updated testing that is testing for more specific things, but then it does seem that just a couple small little dings can really take this score down. So the Model 3 refresh is still definitely very safe, but it doesn't get that top safety pick plus title from IAHS. However, over at Euro NCAP, it's still performing very well with the refreshed version. The updated refreshed Model 3 for adult occupant got a score of 90%, for child occupant 93%, for vulnerable road users 89%, and then safety assist 87%. Similarly, over at ANCAP, it got 90% for adult, 95% for child, 89% for vulnerable road user, and then 88% for safety assist. So it seems like once we get the NHTSA results here, it will probably get 5 stars in every category, which is something that looks great, but it did miss that top safety pick plus title after getting refreshed, and then having IAHS update their tests somewhat. We'll get to Tesla's other vehicles, including the Cybertruck, in a minute, but first let's compare Tesla's most popular car to a few of their top competitors in the United States. All of these crash tests look fairly good for Tesla, but are they better than their competitors, or is everyone just testing very well right now? The top competitors in the US for the Model Y would be the Ford Mustang Mach-E, Chevy Equinox EV, Hyundai Ioniq 5, and Honda Prologue. So first with the Mustang Mach-E, let's look at NHTSA. As a reminder, the Model Y got 5 stars overall and in every individual category here from NHTSA. For the Mach-E, it also got 5 stars overall, but it only got 4 stars for frontal crash specifically. Then it got 5 for side crash and 5 for rollover. When we look at IAHS, it is also a top safety pick plus, but they also have a similar issue with anchors in the back. The anchors in the back aren't too deep like Tesla's, but quote, other hardware could be confused for anchor. It gets a lot more in depth though for Euro NCAP, and here's where we can see that even though they're fairly comparable on a lot of tests, except that frontal crash from NHTSA, Tesla does edge them out in a lot of ways for the Model Y. For adult occupant from Euro NCAP, the Model Y got 97% versus the Mach-E got 92%. For child, it's about the same at 87% for the Model Y and 86% for the Mach-E. But then vulnerable road user is 82% for the Model Y and 69% for the Mach-E. Safety assist is 98% for the Model Y and then 82% for the Mach-E. So we can see that in certain tests, they are very comparable, like IAHS, but for frontal crash and all the scores from Euro NCAP, Tesla does have them beat. Next, let's check out the Chevy Equinox EV, which is becoming more and more popular because of its more affordable price. This from NHTSA got 5 stars overall and 5 stars in every single category. And this brings me to something that's kind of an important note here, which is that EVs do tend to be safer. A lot of that is thanks to the rollover risk in general, and then just all of the latest engineering that they're having to keep up with to compete with other brands like Tesla, who is testing very well on safety. So we're kind of comparing the best safety cars to the best safety cars, because when we look at something like the non-EV Equinox, it actually got poor ratings from IAHS. This is the Chevy Equinox that is the gas version, and it just is nowhere near as safe as the EV version of this car. But now let's look at the Hyundai Ioniq 5. From NHTSA, that has 5 stars overall, but similar to the Mustang Mach-E, only 4 stars on frontal crash. Then it has 5 for side crash and 5 for rollover. It's an IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus, but let's get into the Euro NCAP scores. For adult occupant, again for the Model Y, it's 97%, then the Ioniq 5 is 88%. For child occupant, the Model Y is 87%, whereas the Ioniq 5 is 86%. Then it goes down for vulnerable road user, with the Model Y at 82%, Ioniq 5 at 63%, and then for safety assist, we see 98% for the Model Y and 88% for the Ioniq 5. Again, different test standards, and it really just depends on what your own priority is. Maybe it's really important to you to have child occupant safety in your car, and so you really want that score to be as high as possible, even by 1%. But maybe you will actually never be driving anyone in the rear of your car, so it doesn't matter all that much to you. However, it does seem like safety assist is just something that Tesla is edging everyone out on, at least on Euro NCAP's testing. But then lastly, the Honda Prologue has become a lot more popular in the United States as of late. People seem to like Honda a lot, even though this car is actually built in partnership with GM. This car got 5 stars overall from NHTSA, 5 for frontal crash and 5 for side, but then 4 for rollover, so it does have an increased rollover risk. And then it is not a top safety pick plus specifically from IIHS. You can see some of the categories that they received acceptable ratings here that made it so that it didn't get that top safety pick, just like the refreshed Model 3. So those are some of the main competitors to the Model Y, and we can see that Tesla is beating them pretty much across the board. But Tesla's latest car, the Cybertruck, is one that people have assumed is just not safe. I mean, just look at it. It can't be safe, right? Well, actually, from NHTSA, this car received 5 stars overall. It received 5 stars for frontal crash, 5 stars for side crash, and then 4 for rollover risk. Now 4 may sound like, well, every other Tesla has 5, so they failed here with the Cybertruck, but actually for rollover risk, that's really great for a truck, especially a truck that is this heavy and this size. On top of this, quote, the Cybertruck leads the market with the lowest overall probability of injury and lowest probability of rollover among any pickup truck tested by NHTSA. Over at IIHS, the Cybertruck also tested fairly well. For crashworthiness, it got good. For headlights, it got poor. But then front crash prevention, it got good. We can see that it's not a top safety pick, but overall, it did quite well. Based on the NHTSA results and crash tests that we've seen, this doesn't really come as much of a surprise. And that poor rating for the headlights is unfortunately a byproduct of just the design of the Cybertruck in general. But let's compare to another popular EV truck, the F-150 Lightning. From NHTSA, the F-150 Lightning got 4 stars for frontal crash compared to the Cybertruck's 5. For side crash, it got 5 stars, and then for rollover, it got 4, so those next 2 scores do match the Cybertruck. But looking over at the F-150 Lightning from IIHS, it got poor for crash worthiness. Definitely not really the place that you want to see a poor score for any vehicle, and especially a vehicle this size. For headlights though, it got acceptable, and then for front crash prevention, it got good. Here's a comparison chart of the same safety test between the Cybertruck on the left and the Ford F-150 Lightning on the right. When you look at a photo of these cars, you may not expect one to perform much better than the other, but the Cybertruck actually does a lot better. And part of this demonstrates why it's important to compare vehicles in their own class, because you just can't match the safety of a smaller car that is an optimized size and design for ultimate safety. Now, fire safety is something that people often worry about when it comes to EVs. Given all of these safety tests, does it matter at the end of the day if the car is more prone to catch on fire? Well, if that were the case, then no, it wouldn't really matter. But EVs do not catch on fire more frequently. In fact, quote, according to data from the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, EV cars are 20 times less likely to catch fire than ICE cars, despite EV fire stories receiving disproportionate media coverage. Data here shows about 25 EV fires per 100,000 vehicles, compared to 1,530 ICE fires per 100,000 vehicles. Then hybrids are actually the worst overall, with 3,475 fires per 100,000 vehicles. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's a little piece of data that gets conflated with EV fires, because people just see the electric part of the hybrid and assume that's what's the problem. But when you take out the gas element and just have it be electric, it's much less common. The conclusion of this article is that, quote, while electric car fires can burn hotter and be harder to extinguish, they are much less likely to occur than fires in internal combustion engine ICE vehicles. So that's in general for EVs, but Tesla also directly publishes their own fire safety data. Quote, "Our global data indicates that between 2012 and 2023, approximately one Tesla vehicle fire event occurred for every 135 million vehicle miles traveled. By comparison, data from the NFPA and U.S. Department of Transportation indicate that one vehicle fire occurs in the United States for every 17 million miles traveled. Compared to average vehicles on the road, Tesla vehicles are comparatively even less likely to be involved in a fire event than those numbers suggest, because Tesla's data includes fire events that are caused by structure fires, wildfires, arson, and other causes unrelated to the vehicle, whereas the NFPA data excludes any fires where a structure is involved." So that pretty much can take out the fire argument here. But Tesla also makes two other cars, so let's look at the safety of the Model S and the Model X. For the Model S, this car has been around for quite some time, and when it was originally tested, it got 5 stars in every category from NHTSA. It actually was breaking records at the time as well when this happened. But the latest safety test for the Model S comes from Euro NCAP, where it's getting an adult occupant score of 94%, a child occupant score of 91%, a vulnerable road user score of 85%, and safety assist score of 98%. This is for the 2022 version of the Model S, so it does come after they refreshed it, but they did just do a slight refresh recently that could change things ever so slightly, but overall it seems to be the same basic car with the same basic tech. Then for Tesla's SUV, the Model X, when tested in 2017, it was also the highest safety rated SUV by a significant margin, so it performed much better than every other car in its category. For the 2020 Model X, NHTSA rated it at 5 stars overall and in every single individual category. Then for Euro NCAP in 2019, the Model X received an adult occupant score of 98%, child occupant score of 81%, vulnerable road users score of 72%, and safety assist score of 94%. Basically, if you sum up this video into one sentence, it would be that every single Tesla vehicle is safe, and you really can't go wrong from that perspective. But there are plenty of other safe vehicles out there as well, so here are a few other top safety picks. Most recently, for Top Safety Pick Plus from IAHS, they include the Hyundai Ioniq 6, the Ioniq 5, Subaru Solterra, and Toyota BZ4X. On top of that is the Mustang Mach-E, Kia EV9, Audi Q6 e-tron, Genesis electrified GV70, and Model Y. Then the Rivian R1S is a Top Safety Pick Plus, and the R1T is just a Top Safety Pick. In large part, seemingly due to its smaller size compared to other electric trucks, it is proving to be a little bit safer, at least according to the criteria of IAHS. As I've detailed in this video, Tesla does a very good job with safety. They first do a good job of preventing accidents, but then when that accident actually occurs, they also do a good job of protecting the occupant inside. At this point, it's one of the most important pieces to consider when buying a vehicle, and it's great to know that EVs in general are performing very well in this regard. The future looks very bright for vehicle safety as a whole. I also think that it's great that we're getting these globally produced cars that have to meet safety standards across the globe, because then you are getting the most benefit as a driver for the safest car possible, as opposed to one that just looks good on paper according to one specific test. In any case, I hope this video was helpful for you, and in the meantime, if you want to see the latest Tesla tech and EV news, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.